Now, Australia has found itself on the receiving end of nuclear threats from North Korea over the weekend after siding strongly with the US in that standoff.
But Julie Bishop says the North Korean government should invest in the welfare of its long-suffering citizens rather than weapons of mass destruction. For some analysis of this increasingly bitter and hostile situation, we're joined from Canberra by John Blaxland from the Strategic and Defence Studies Centre at the Australian National University. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael.
There's lots of robust commentary about this morning, citing that North Korean warning about nuking Australia being nothing short of a declaration of war. How do you read the situation?
Look, I think it's better to see it in terms of bluster. North Korea doesn't have the capability to strike Australia with ballistic missiles or with nuclear weapons. Its nuclear weapons program is still in the testing phase. They have not demonstrated the ability to deploy a nuclear weapon remotely outside of the testing field yet. We know, however, that they are on the trajectory to the refinement of the nuclear weapons capability and the ballistic missile technology. And within 2 to 4 years, most pundits argue about 4 years, we'll see the technologies merge and we'll see the threat from North Korea escalate considerably. And that, of course, is what's driving in the United States pressure on North Korea to back down and on China to exert additional pressure on Kim Jong-un.
And when we had that very direct warning or that message to China delivered by the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, over the weekend, we do know China has been a bit unsettled by what has been going on in North Korea. To what extent, though, is the regime there listening to Beijing?
Well, we're not at all confident that they're listening very much at all. We know, for instance, that the normal lines of communication between North Korea and China have become much more tenuous. Kim Jong-un he had his own uncle assassinated. He was a key interlocutor with China. The Chinese are more worried about North Korea than they've ever been. And they're, of course, now more invested in South Korea than they've ever been. So the balance of interests for China has actually shifted considerably in the last few years, making their investment in North Korea less so. But of course, we need to remember that in the grand scheme of things, China is very interested in really applying more pressure on the United States to back out of the East China Sea, the South China Sea, and of course also the Korean Peninsula. So what happens in North Korea is very important to China. They do not want to see North Korea implode or be assaulted by the United States or from South Korea. They do not want to see an American-aligned Republic of Korea take over the north. They do not want to see American troops on their border. They want the opposite. So if they can come up with some negotiation strategy that would see the United States back down and accommodate North Korea and perhaps constrain the prospects of nuclear weapons emerging, that would be the ideal end state for China.
Okay, so just jumping in there, so what are the realistic options of the Trump administration doing that? We know the Carl Vinson Carrier Group is steaming towards the Korean Peninsula now after some confusion about its whereabouts last week. So it's a bit of a standoff at the moment, and it's going to require at least one party to back down. Will that be the United States?
Well, so far we've seen escalatory rhetoric come out from the United States, and the posturing has been very much about shooting down the next ballistic missile firing. Thankfully, last week, the one that was launched fizzed, didn't go anywhere. But we're seeing indications that the United States is prepared to shoot down the next ballistic missile that is fired over the Sea of Japan. If that happens, and if they are successful in hitting that ballistic missile, then there's prospects of escalation, because Kim Jong-un has a lot at stake here and he is prepared to escalate. He is a rational actor, but he's a deeply paranoid rational actor. And that means that while it's very opaque, it's unclear exactly what they plan to do, American actions to push the borders and to push a reaction, they're in a very difficult position of monitoring clearly what Kim Jong-un would do next. And that's the danger point. That's where we know 1 inch over the precipice, one way or the other, could see us tumble into an escalation.
On that uplifting note, we'll leave it there. We always appreciate your insights, John Blaxland. Thank you very much for that.